Can a war movie made over 50 years ago still hit harder than most films released today? Some of these classics were built with real locations, massive practical battles, and performances that felt less like acting and more like survival. In this countdown, we're revisiting 15 World War II movies from the 60s and 70s that still hold up in 2026, and by the end, one film may make modern war cinema look surprisingly small. Number 15. Hell is for Heroes, 1962. Some war films charge into battle with flags waving, but this one crawls into the mud and dares you to breathe. Hell is for Heroes is not a polished victory parade. It is a tense, stripped-down combat story about exhausted American soldiers trying to hold a thin defensive line against a much larger German force. That smaller scale is exactly why it still works. Instead of drowning the viewer in spectacle, the film traps you with men who are tired, scared, bitter, and running out of options. Steve McQueen brings a hard, wounded intensity to the story, playing a soldier who feels less like a clean-cut hero and more like a man carrying too much damage inside him. The suspense comes from waiting for the attack, knowing the enemy may be closer than anyone wants to admit. Its impact is quiet, but sharp. War is not always about grand strategy. Sometimes survival depends on a few frightened men pretending they are stronger than they are. Number 14. Von Ryan's Express, 1965. A prison escape is dangerous enough, but this one puts the prisoners on a train racing straight through enemy territory. Von Ryan's Express turns World War II into a breathless survival chase, blending POW drama, action-adventure, and old-school star power into one fast-moving wartime thriller. Frank Sinatra plays Colonel Joseph Ryan, an American officer thrown into command of Allied prisoners who do not instantly trust him. That tension gives the story its bite, because the real enemy is not only the German army outside the wire, but suspicion, pride, and desperation inside the group itself. Once the escape begins, the film transforms into a moving battlefield, with every station, tunnel, uniform, and checkpoint becoming a possible death trap. What makes it hold up is its momentum. It does not waste time pretending war is clean, but it also understands the thrill of impossible odds. Number 13. The Bridge at Remagen, 1969. Sometimes the most dangerous place in a war is not the battlefield. It is the one bridge everyone is willing to die for. The Bridge at Remagen turns a real strategic crisis into a tense, ground-level war thriller, where victory is not clean, heroic, or easy. As Allied forces push deeper into Germany, the Ludendorff Bridge becomes the prize that could change everything. For the Americans, capturing it means opening a path across the Rhine. For the Germans, destroying it means delaying the inevitable collapse of the Reich. That pressure gives the film its nervous pulse. George Segal, Robert Vaughn, and Ben Gazzara bring human weight to a story that could have been simple combat spectacle, but instead becomes a portrait of men trapped between orders, fear, exhaustion, and survival. The film holds up because it refuses to make war look graceful. Buildings crumble, soldiers panic, officers argue, and the bridge itself becomes almost like a living character, shaking under history's weight. What makes it powerful is the moral confusion underneath the action. Both sides know the war is ending, but the killing has not stopped. Number 12. Battle of Britain, 1969. Before rockets, drones, and digital war rooms, the fate of a nation once hung in the sky above burning cities. Battle of Britain is one of those old-school war epics that still feels enormous because it was built with aircraft, practical scale, and a sense of national emergency that modern effects often struggle to recreate. The film captures Britain at a moment when invasion felt terrifyingly possible, and the Royal Air Force became the thin line between survival and surrender. Instead of focusing on one fictional hero, the movie spreads its tension across pilots, commanders, radar rooms, airfields, and civilians watching the sky with dread. That wide perspective gives it documentary-like weight. The dogfights are not just action scenes. They feel like desperate contests of nerve, skill, and endurance. Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier, Trevor Howard, and the ensemble cast help turn strategy into drama, showing how decisions made in quiet rooms could mean life or death above the clouds. What keeps the film relevant in 2026 is its atmosphere of pressure. It understands that war is fought not only by those who fire weapons, but by entire societies holding their breath. The impact still lands. Courage can look glamorous from a distance, but up close, it is exhaustion with no option to quit. Number 11. Tora, 1970. This is not a war film that rushes toward explosions. It makes you watch the mistakes forming before the bombs ever fall. Tora remains one of the most serious and methodical Pearl Harbor films ever made because it treats disaster as a chain reaction. Instead of turning history into simple heroes and villains, the film studies confusion, miscommunication, ambition, intelligence failures, and military calculation on both sides of the Pacific. That is what gives it its staying power. The attack itself is spectacular, but the real tension is in the slow build. Messages delayed, warnings ignored, commanders unsure, and a world moving toward a moment it cannot reverse. By using both American and Japanese perspectives, the film creates a colder, more unsettling kind of suspense. You are not just waiting for action, you are watching history tighten like a trap. The practical aerial sequences still have a physical power that feels dangerous and real. Planes move with weight, fire spreads with chaos. Men react like they cannot fully understand what is happening yet. In 2026, it still holds up because it does not insult the audience with easy emotion. Some catastrophes do not arrive suddenly. They are built, step by step, while everyone thinks there is still time. Number 10. Kelly's Heroes, 1970. War is supposed to be about orders, sacrifice, and duty, but this film asks what happens when soldiers start chasing gold instead. Kelly's Heroes is the wild card on this list, a World War II movie that refuses to behave like a traditional war epic. It mixes combat, crime caper, dark comedy, and anti-establishment attitude into a story about American soldiers who discover a hidden stash of Nazi treasure behind enemy lines. Clint Eastwood plays Kelly with cool calculation, but the film's real charm comes from the strange chemistry around him. Telly Savalas brings command energy, Don Rickles adds nervous comedy, and Donald Sutherland's oddball turns the whole mission into something almost countercultural. Underneath the fun, though, the movie has a sharper edge. These men are tired of being used, tired of official objectives, and tired of pretending war has noble answers for everyone involved. That rebellious spirit is why it still feels fresh. The action works, the humor still bites, and the treasure hunt gives the film momentum that keeps viewers locked in. It holds up because it understands something uncomfortable. Even in a war framed as righteous, ordinary soldiers can feel trapped inside someone else's grand plan. The punch is irresistible. Sometimes the most memorable mission is the one nobody officially approved. Number 9. A Bridge Too Far, 1977. Few war films dare to make failure feel this massive, this expensive, and this painfully human. A Bridge Too Far is not built like a victory parade. It is a grand, star-packed examination of ambition colliding with reality. The film dramatizes Operation Market Garden, the Allied plan to seize a chain of bridges in the Netherlands and force a faster route into Germany. On paper, the mission looked bold. On the ground, it became a nightmare of distance, weather, resistance, missed intelligence, and soldiers paying the price for optimism at the top. That is what makes the film so compelling. With a cast including Sean Connery, Michael Caine, Anthony Hopkins, Gene Hackman, Robert Redford, and Laurence Olivier, the movie carries the weight of an event too large for one perspective. It jumps between commanders, paratroopers, tank crews, civilians, and trapped men waiting for help that may never arrive. The scale is impressive, but the emotional power comes from watching confidence slowly crack. Every bridge becomes a promise. Every delay becomes a wound. Every brave push forward carries the shadow of a plan that may already be doomed. In 2026, it still holds up because it is willing to show courage without pretending courage always wins. Number 8. The Train, 1964. A train loaded with stolen art should not feel like a ticking bomb, but this film turns every painting into a matter of life and death. The Train is one of the smartest World War II thrillers of its era because it does not rely on endless speeches or oversized heroics. It builds suspense from movement, steel, smoke, sabotage, and moral pressure. Burt Lancaster plays a French railway inspector, drawn into the Resistance's effort to stop a German officer from transporting priceless French artworks out of occupied Paris. The story sounds simple, but the question underneath is dangerous. How many lives should be risked to save a nation's cultural soul? That tension gives the film its lasting power. The action feels physical because the trains, tracks, explosions, and stations carry real weight. Nothing feels artificial. Every delay matters. Every wrong signal could expose the mission. Paul Scofield gives the German colonel a chilling elegance, making him less like a cartoon villain and more like a man who understands beauty but has lost all humanity. That contrast keeps the film unsettling. In 2026, The Train still holds up because it treats war as more than territory and weapons. It shows that identity, memory, and art can become targets too. Sometimes an army does not only steal land, it tries to steal the proof that a people ever existed. Number 7. Cross of Iron, 1977. This is not the clean, heroic version of World War II. This is the war after glory has rotted away. Cross of Iron stands apart because it drags the viewer into the Eastern Front from the German side, but without turning its soldiers into romantic myths. Sam Peckinpah makes the battlefield feel broken, bitter, and almost hopeless, a place where survival has replaced patriotism, and pride has become another weapon. James Coburn's Sergeant Steiner is not a shining hero. He is a hardened soldier who has seen too much and believes too little. Opposite him, Maximilian Schell's Captain Stransky represents ambition, class arrogance, and the hunger for medals even when everything around him is collapsing. That conflict gives the film its nerve. The enemy is not only across the battlefield, it is inside the command structure, inside the ego, inside the lie that war still has honor when men are being ground into mud. The combat scenes are brutal, chaotic, and intentionally uncomfortable, refusing the polished rhythm of classic adventure war films. That is why it still feels modern. In 2026, Cross of Iron holds up because it understands the psychology of exhaustion better than many bigger productions. It does not ask viewers to cheer, it asks them to witness. Number 6. The Guns of Navarone, 1961. Some missions are called impossible because no sane soldier would accept them, and that is exactly where this classic begins. The Guns of Navarone remains one of the great World War II adventure films because it understands the power of a deadly objective, a desperate deadline, and a team held together by courage, doubt, and tension. The story follows Allied commandos sent to destroy massive German guns hidden on a fortified Greek island, weapons that are blocking the rescue of trapped British soldiers. That setup gives the film instant stakes. Fail the mission, and thousands may be left to die. Gregory Peck brings controlled authority. David Niven adds intelligence and moral friction, and Anthony Quinn gives the film rugged emotional force. What makes the movie still work is not just the scale, but the human pressure inside the mission. These men climb cliffs, cross enemy territory, face betrayal, and carry private fears they cannot afford to show. The film has that classic war movie texture: dangerous landscapes, practical danger, slow-burning suspicion, and action that feels earned instead of thrown at the screen. In 2026, The Guns of Navarone still holds up because it gives viewers the pleasure of a grand adventure without making sacrifice feel cheap. The biggest guns in the war are not always made of steel. Sometimes they are the men willing to walk straight toward them. Number 5. Where Eagles Dare, 1968. A castle in the snow, a secret prisoner, and a mission where almost everyone may be lying. This is war cinema built like a trap. Where Eagles Dare is one of the most entertaining World War II action thrillers ever made, because it never lets the viewer relax. What begins as a rescue operation quickly becomes a maze of disguises, double crosses, hidden identities, and shifting loyalties. Richard Burton brings icy control as Major Smith, while Clint Eastwood adds quiet, lethal force as Lieutenant Schaefer. Together, they move through a Nazi fortress where every corridor feels dangerous, and every conversation could be a coded threat. The film's magic is its momentum. It has cable cars, explosions, gunfights, secret documents, impossible escapes, and enough twists to make the mission feel larger than the war around it. Yet it works because the tension is not only physical. The real suspense comes from not knowing who is playing whom. In 2026, Where Eagles Dare still holds up because it delivers pure cinematic confidence. It is not trying to be small or realistic in the modern sense. It is trying to be thrilling, elegant, and relentless, and it succeeds. The snowy atmosphere gives it style, the plot gives it mystery, and the action gives it bite. In this mission, the bullets are dangerous, but the lies may be even deadlier. Number 4. Force 10 from Navarone, 1978. Some sequels try to repeat the legend, but this one throws its soldiers into a mission where the ground itself feels ready to collapse. Force 10 from Navarone may not have the mythic status of the original, but it still works as a tough, old-school World War II adventure built around danger, deception, and impossible timing. The story follows a mixed Allied team sent into enemy territory to destroy a vital bridge, but the mission quickly becomes more complicated than anyone expected. What gives the film its appeal is its rugged, men-on-a-mission energy. Robert Shaw brings hard authority. Harrison Ford adds younger intensity. And the film keeps pushing its characters through shifting alliances, hidden motives, rough terrain, and constant threat. Unlike cleaner war adventures, this one feels unstable, as if every plan is only one mistake away from disaster. The bridge itself becomes more than a target. It becomes the symbol of whether these men can turn chaos into strategy before the enemy closes in. In 2026, Force 10 from Navarone still holds up because it delivers practical adventure with real stakes, strong personalities, and that classic war movie rhythm where courage is tested under pressure. The punch is simple. In this mission, victory does not come from strength alone. It comes from surviving long enough to make the impossible break at exactly the right moment.
Number 3. Patton, 1970. Before superhero-sized egos took over modern screens, one war film built its legend around a real general who seemed too large for ordinary history. Patton is not just a World War II movie. It is a towering character study of command, ego, brilliance, discipline, and contradiction. George C. Scott's performance as General George S. Patton remains one of the most commanding portrayals in war cinema because he does not play him as simply heroic or simply arrogant. He plays him as a man addicted to destiny, convinced that war is both his profession and his stage. The film follows Patton through the North African campaign, Sicily, and Europe, showing his tactical gifts alongside the temper and pride that made him controversial. What keeps the movie fascinating is its refusal to flatten him into easy admiration. Patton can inspire men, humiliate enemies, make bold decisions, and then damage his own legacy with reckless words or behavior. That complexity gives the film its staying power. The battle scenes carry scale, but the real war is often inside Patton himself, between discipline and vanity, courage and obsession, greatness and self-destruction. In 2026, Patton still holds up because audiences remain fascinated by powerful figures who can win battles and still lose control of their own image. This is not only the story of a man shaping history, but of history struggling to contain a man who believed he had been born for war. Number 2. The Longest Day, 1962. Some war films show a battle. This one tries to make you feel an entire world holding its breath before dawn. The Longest Day remains one of the definitive D-Day epics because it treats the Normandy landings not as a simple action event, but as a massive human machine made of fear, planning, confusion, sacrifice, and chance. With its huge international cast and multi-perspective structure, the film moves between Allied commanders, German officers, paratroopers, infantrymen, resistance fighters, and civilians caught near the edge of history. That scope is what makes it endure. The viewer does not experience D-Day from one heroic angle, but from many points of pressure at once. The film shows the waiting, the misread signals, the weather concerns, the airborne drops, the beach assaults, and the chaos of men trying to execute plans that immediately collide with reality. Its black and white photography gives it a documentary-like seriousness, making the scale feel sober instead of decorative. John Wayne, Richard Burton, Robert Mitchum, Sean Connery, Henry Fonda, and many others create the feeling of a cinematic memorial as much as a war drama. In 2026, The Longest Day still holds up because it respects the event's size without losing the human anxiety underneath it. Number 1. The Great Escape, 1963. The greatest prison break in war cinema does not begin with running. It begins with men refusing to let captivity win. The Great Escape sits at number 1 because it remains one of the most watchable, emotionally gripping, and iconic World War II films ever made. Set inside a German POW camp, the film follows Allied prisoners as they plan a mass escape designed not only to free men, but to disrupt the enemy's resources and morale. That detail matters because the escape is not treated like a selfish adventure. It is part rebellion, part duty, and part psychological survival. Steve McQueen brings effortless cool as hilts, but the film's power comes from the entire ensemble. Planners, diggers, forgers, tailors, scouts, and men quietly risking everything for a tunnel that may become either freedom or a grave. The suspense builds through process. Every forged paper, hidden shovel, stolen uniform, and handful of dirt matters. The famous motorcycle sequence gives the film its pop culture immortality, but the emotional weight comes later, when the cost of escape becomes clear. In 2026, The Great Escape still holds up because it blends entertainment with tragedy so smoothly that viewers are thrilled before they realize how deeply the story has cut. It is charming, tense, heroic, and heartbreaking, without losing control of its tone. It shows that freedom is not only crossing a border, sometimes it is the decision to resist, even when the fence is still standing. So which of these battlefield classics still hits hardest for you? The daring escape, the doomed bridge, the impossible mission, or the general who seemed born for war? These films prove that real tension does not age when the stakes are human. Drop your favorite in the comments because one forgotten World War II classic may deserve a comeback next.